Thank you so much, Rick, and thank you all for joining us here today in our brand new headquarters. So we literally just got this last week, which is why we do not have a key today.
We have a key. I just
learning experience. And I really wanted to just say I am so very proud of the Cherokee delegation and just how quick they were to respond about coming to meet with us today. And Representative Carson was going to be here, and unfortunately he is sick and his work's contagious. So he was kind enough not to share his germs with us and sharing what he's trying to work for us at the Capitol. So if you do see him, please say thank you, because I think that's great that he offered to come out here with only 3 precincts, meaning the likelihood of anyone in this room being one of his constituents or even a voter is very small, but he'd still agree to come and speak with us about what legislation is doing. And with Senator Albers, that effect too. Senator Albers has 1 precinct in Cherokee County, and yet he came all the way over here today to come speak with us. So I'm very proud to be in Cherokee County, to be on this leadership team, because I'm very proud to be represented by these fine folks. So I'd ask that after we've let them have about 5 minutes each to speak about what they're working on to help protect the Capitol, that when we're asking questions during a Q&A, that we would keep in mind that they volunteered to be here with us today, and just to be respectful of that and to ask questions not as if, why do you hate America and puppies? Because how do you answer that? But ask leading questions that allow people to give you the answers that you really want to hear. Because this is a great opportunity, and it's a unique opportunity to get the answers. And it's the ratio of legislators to people here right now is about 4 to 1. I think that's pretty cool. So with that, I'm going to start with Senator Albers and give him 5 minutes to talk about what he's working at the Capitol.
Great, thank you, Haley. Good morning. Good morning. Well, it's great to be here. I want to thank the party for all that you do. It takes great volunteers to come out every day in order to propel us forward. I want to begin by talking about Georgia for just a moment. Oftentimes in the news we see a lot of sensationalism, and we see things that are happening, a lot of them from Washington, and it can be defeating sometimes. But I want you to think about the great things that are happening here in Georgia. We are the 5th fastest growing state and have been for a generation. People are streaming out of the Northeast, the Midwest, and the West Coast. They're losing population while they're all moving here. Sometimes we complain about traffic, and rightfully so. They don't have any traffic in Detroit, Michigan. They have 1/3 of the population they did 20 years ago. So we have a lot to be thankful for. We're the #1 place to do business for the 3rd year in a row in the state. We have one of the best tax climates. We are the lowest cost of government of all 50 states. And the list goes on of the things that we should be proud of. So if you don't have a Georgia flag, I'll give you one. We don't get them. We have to buy them ourselves, but I will buy one with my own money and give it to you, and put that right below your American flag, and be proud of Georgia, because we have so many things to be proud of. I want to talk about a few things that we're working on in the legislature right now, and each year tends to have some type of a theme, and we're figuring what that theme will be this year. But one thing that we have to do, that we're all constitutionally mandated to do every year, is have a balanced budget with no deficit. We say that again in case somebody didn't hear it. We have a balanced budget and no deficit. If we can do it here, they can do it up in Washington, D.C. And we have thank you. And we have an awesome delegation here. We work together all the time. Not a day goes by that one of us is not interacting with each other, trying to serve everyone here locally as well as statewide. And I will tell you, not every delegation is blessed to have this type of talent, this type of background and experience to do that. And I'm really blessed to work with this group of people. Let me tell you about a few things that I'm working on. First is the Protecting Georgia Small Businesses Act. Now, our friends in Washington, in what's called the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, in their infinite wisdom this summer, decided they would turn over the way all franchisor and franchisee agreements work. So imagine every restaurant, every hotel, every child care center, a wireless phone store, that are all a small business franchise. All of a sudden they said, no, they're going to be co-employed, which is basically going to destroy the franchisor model, because what they want to do is force everybody to have to give Obamacare. They want to force all the federal regulations down upon small businesses. Well, that would be very hurtful, and we don't want that. So my bill, which will go into process, if you will, next Tuesday, will begin putting a line of demarcation in the sand and say, no, in Georgia, this is how we identify we're going to protect our small businesses. The second one I'm working on is the protection of your data and making sure the proper notification is being sent to you. God forbid your identity is stolen or data is taken. So we've seen so many things over the last couple of years, Target, Anthem, even our own Secretary of State, where we've had data that has been taken, has been hacked into, or literally people have grabbed paper files. And we need to make sure that's protected, but if something happens to that data, you as a consumer need to be notified and quickly. And with the steps that can fix it. As an example, if you knew something happened, well, you might be able to freeze your credit. You might get a credit monitoring service, or you're at least aware to make sure your antenna is going to be up to prevent anything nefarious from happening. Unfortunately, this is going to be a growing thing in our lifetimes, right? People aren't robbing trains and banks as much, but they are doing this. And in Georgia, we want to be prepared as best we can. A couple other things that I'm going to be working on the side is to make sure that we are making sure local control is always watched, right? It's easy sometimes for governments that are above the other ones to say, hey, we need you to do this, and then force that upon local governments. And that happens a lot from the federal government to us in the state government. Well, then we can't do the same thing to a county or a city government, right? And a good example of that is the fireworks bill, right? I love fireworks. I love to shoot them off. I love to watch them and bring my family. But we need to make sure that local noise ordinances rule the day. So people, and February 15th aren't up at 11:59 because their neighbor is blasting off every rocket they have in the garage, right? So things like that we need to work on and we need to do better. I also have a bill to help out with public safety, and it's to take DNA upon the arrest of a serious felon. Most states do this today, but just like we started out years ago, taking somebody's fingerprint or their mug shot, today we have a new form of that, which is using DNA. And if we take that, we'll do two very important things. Number one is we're going to put bad actors in jail and connect them to other crimes faster, but also we're going to exonerate the innocent. And in our system of justice, that is just, if not more important. So I'll be working on that, and then a handful of other things. And a lot of people have asked me this question. I'll give you my opinion on it. Last year we passed something called the Beer Jobs Bill, right? My friend Senator Hunter Hill put that legislation, and it's not so much about whether someone can get a craft beer or not. It's about, do we as government, should we be having all these controls in place, and should we lord over people? And we should not. And we need to go through and look at everything that's non-free market today, make sure we eliminate the monopoly, and let the people and let the businesses decide what they want and how they want to get it. So those are the things I'm working on. Let me just finish up with this. The presidential race is coming. A lot of us have been watching the debates. Some of us are behind candidates, some of us are not behind candidates. But I want to make sure you leave with one message from me today, if nothing else. It doesn't matter who wins on the Republican side. Whether you loved them, you hated them, you think they're a rhino, you think they're too conservative, you think they're somewhere in the middle, every single one of them are better than Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Every single one of them. So when the primaries are over, not only do you need to vote for that person, you need to enthusiastically put out yard signs. You need to call your friends. You need to support them. You need to put it on social media as if they were your person all along, no matter what. Because last election in 2012, Mitt Romney won the independent vote. We didn't show up as a Republican Party. Had we, Obama would not be in the White House right now. So we have to come together and make sure that we're not shooting at each other in that circle. We all turned around and went after the folks that clearly are going in the wrong direction. So with that in mind, please come down and visit us down at the Capitol. I know all of us would love to host you. Come down when we're busy if you want to watch the debate. Come down when we're not busy just to enjoy the history, because it's your house, not ours. And it's an absolute opportunity to serve you, and I love to do it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Albers. Debbie, we're going to get to questions after.
Well, I just have one question. Could y'all tell us the bill number? That's my question. I think it's pertinent.
Bill number, which one I talked about?
Well, well, you don't have to go backwards, but I'm just thinking as y'all come up, if you would just say the bill number, would be helpful. Because it's hard to track them otherwise.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then next up, I have Senator Beach. Come up and speak.
Good morning, everybody, and again, thank y'all for coming out. Thank you for volunteering. We need y'all badly when we run for office and to be engaged in the political process. So thank you for being here and having interest in this process. I just echo a little bit about what Senator Albers said, and that is we have to balance our budget with no deficit, number one. And number two, our state is the number one state in the country to do business. Not just this year, but 3 years in a row. We've been the number one state to do business. And the reason that is because we are business friendly. We cut regulations, we cut taxes, and I think the best example of that is the film industry. We have a tax credit they've received $500 million in tax credits but we've had a $6.1 billion in economic impact because of that. And now we are filming more movies here than California. So we are in the movie business, and the good news is people are investing now. We're building studios and facilities, and it's bringing permanent jobs here. So there's roots being brought into here. So that's good news. The other thing is, I would tell you, good for us, we have a $1.4 billion rainy day fund. So we built that back up in case we do have economic recession down the road. So we're saving for the future. But I will tell you, this is we got to be involved in this presidential election, just like Senator Albert said, because we can't take 4 more or 8 more years of what we've been going through. So just 2 bills that I'm working on. First off, I'm chairman of Economic Development Committee. I serve on the Science and Technology Committee, Regulated Industries, and then Transportation. I'm also on a committee called MARTOC, which just deals with Fulton and DeKalb. It's the MART Oversight Committee, and I represent the Senate in that also. So, but 2 bills I'm working on. It was on the front page of the Atlanta Business Chronicle yesterday, and that is to bring the equestrian industry to Georgia, horse racing. And I know pari-mutuel wagering is a component of it, but that's not what I'm really focused on. I'm focused on it's 5,000 new jobs, $500 million in economic impact to the state, $15 million going to the Hope Scholarship, and it's really creating an ecosystem for the equestrian industry, horse farms, hay farms, feed farms, breeding, and track personnel and hospitality personnel. So it's going to really create jobs and create excitement. And this isn't just going to be a racetrack. It'd be a racetrack with a hotel, retail, very similar to what the Braves are doing, kind of a 100-acre complex, if you will. So I'm excited. And listen, folks, we're in the horse business. We have more horses here now than we did during the Civil War. We're just not capitalizing on it, and we're not creating that ecosystem. There's a lot of horses here. We're just not in the business, and we're not capitalizing on that business. So that's the number one. The number 2, and that's Senate Bill 264. Senate Bill 264. The other bill that I'm working on, and I'll probably drop it Wednesday or Thursday, as you know, last year we passed House Bill 170. We have $1 billion in state funds now for roads and bridges, okay? That's our money. We don't have to go to Washington. That money doesn't go to Washington, so we don't have any strings attached to that if we don't want to. So I'm introducing a bill to suspend environmental studies on all state-funded road projects for 2 years. Anything under $100 million, we will not have to do an environmental study. That will expedite the project probably 10 to 12 months. It'll cut millions and millions of dollars out of it, hundreds of millions of dollars out of the projects, and it'll get your roads built faster. It's very Republican. It's less regulation, cutting cost. So I'm really proud of this. I think the Fed should take a look at this and have a moratorium. If we get the right president in the White House and we have a Republican Congress, we can suspend the environmental rules at the federal level too and get some roads built, because it takes too long to get a road built. And I'm all for the environment, but the pendulum has swung way too much. I know y'all have heard me tell the story about working on a road that's in our district. West Side Parkway took 11 years for 2 miles. And yet, between 1956 and 1970, we built 46,000 miles of interstate. We couldn't do that now today because we just can't. We got too many regulations and too many strings attached to get things done. So this will be very, very good policy to get roads built. So that I don't have a bill number on that yet because I'll be dropping it Wednesday. It's still in Legislative Council, but I think it's going to be a great bill. It's very Republican. So with that, again, thank you for allowing me to serve as your senator in District 21. I appreciate y'all's support. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, I'll get you the bill number. We're gonna have a press conference on this. GDOT's ecstatic about this. The GDOT board's ecstatic about it. This will be something that nobody else in the nation's done this. It'll be very good.
Thank you so much, Senator Beach. And next, if I can have Senator Bruce Thompson from District 14.
Good morning. Good morning, some of you, I guess. I'm going to move right into this and first start off by apologizing. I'm going to have to leave in just a few minutes at 10 o'clock. My daughter's on homecoming court at 10:30, so we're splitting the difference now. It was important to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So there's 4 pieces of legislation that's moving pretty quick that I've got. We have not dropped these yet because we want to make sure they're right. The first involves this. It's pretty innocuous, but it's surprising, and that is If you're a state law enforcement officer and you retire, you receive your service weapon and your badge as a part of that compensation. It was state issued. On a local level, different municipalities do not allow that. So for instance, in Bartow County, you've got a chief of police, Culpepper, that retired. The city attorney said we're not allowed to have that because we use some grant money to be able to get those weapons. It's simply permissive to allow that, so it's not mandated. Somewhat innocuous, but it allows that. The number 2 bill that I've got coming forward, a little bit controversial. Mandy's working on it on the House. I'm introducing it on the Senate. They've already dropped the bill. We have not. And that is this. In our state, unlike 30 other states, if you rape a woman and that baby is carried to term, in our state, you still have parental rights. 30 other states, those rights are terminated. And frankly, I think that should happen. But I want to be very careful that we don't catch people that maybe shouldn't have their rights terminated. So I'm erring on the side of the individual. Within the bill that the House has right now, it includes some incest provision, it has some trafficking provision. We're looking at that to make sure that what this bill or this legislation intends to do, we do that. The third piece, you've seen a lot of media about this, seems to be a little controversy about this. Frankly, I'm not going to get in a debate about this. It is a fact. Heroin is an epidemic. You can look at it, you can Google it, you can see it across the country. It's an issue. It's outside our county. We happen to highlight it in this county because you've got Michelle Neese who lost her son, Keeley. So we're working right now within the current code to look and see how do you make it 3 things, or accomplish 3 things. First of all, one is the dealers, traffickers will not want to come to our state. Okay. This is unlike coke, it's unlike meth, it's unlike anything that's out there. You take 1 shot and you're using heroin and you have fentanyl, it'll kill you. And whether that number is 85 or where it's 40, I would submit to you as someone that represents part of Cherokee County, it's too many for our citizens to lose it. It's not a Democratic issue, it's not a Republican issue, it's not an African American, it's not Hispanic. Look at the people that are dying in our state. Talk to your former chief medical examiner who's on the board, Chris Spear. It's your upper middle class, it's our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, our county, our state. It's an issue. And so we're looking to make it, first of all, a lot more difficult. So maybe hypothetically good morning. Hypothetically, let's say it's 10 grams that you're carrying. If it's classified as trafficking, no longer will the judicial system be able to take into account and say, well, maybe we'll plead this down and maybe it's a year served or whatever, even though it's supposed to be a 5-year minimum. So we haven't introduced that yet because we're trying to make sure what we do introduce will do what it's supposed to. The second thing is we'll be looking at seeing how we can get some appropriations. People go into treatment, they come out of treatment, and that's where a majority of these people get caught up and they wind up dying the second time around. The third thing is the education piece of that. That last piece of legislation I'm very excited about. Many people don't know about this. This is not embryonic. It's adult stem cells. So ladies and gentlemen, here's what's happened. And I think Senator Albers or possibly Senator Beach mentioned this before when we talk about the federal overreach. Stem cells. Many people have no idea about what stem cells are unless they've used them themselves. But stem cells have been going on for 10 years. Adult stem cells are your own stem cells. For people like myself who's got a little weight right here, I'm primed with stem cells. Comes out of your fat. Okay? A couple of people chuckle because they got a little bit of retirement cells. The rest of you are less. This is serious. Here's why. The good Lord's given us the ability to heal ourselves. You cut your skin, what happens? It heals, right? Yes? Yeah. For the rest of you, when you cut yourself, you'll heal. Adult stem cells, of which I sit on an international board, have researched this for, I'm telling you, 10, 15 years. Take Peyton Manning, for instance, his neck injury, right? He had his stem cells harvested here. He had them stored here. Where did he go get treatment on his neck?
Out of the country.
Outside the country. Billions of dollars going outside of our country because there is zero, I can't believe as a Republican I'm saying this, but there's no regulation around stem cells. It's the Wild West. And so what's happened is the FDA in April up there, is taking stem cells and they may even bring in cord blood, which some of you may have stored, and they're going to classify this as a drug. And they're going to shut it all down and they're going to throw it all back through this. So for some of you that don't know this, I'm going to make it very, very personal. Ladies, you know anyone that's ever had a mastectomy because of cancer? Your plastic surgeon uses stem cells to adhere the tissue when they're rebuilding that. How would you like your federal government to say you're no longer entitled to that because your breasts are simply only a milk production. You're not entitled to be able to do that. That's a fact. What we're seeking to do is in our state to create some structure, be the first state in the union where safely adult stem cell, not embryonic, adult stem cell research and administration can be done. That will move pretty quickly. Now, it's a very complicated bill, a lot of people involved in it. Of course, if you're in the device business or if you're in the pharmaceutical business, you hate this bill. But our country, our state right now is ripe, but we don't have a lot of that. Georgia Tech, Emory, and others are behind this bill. So with that, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be able to share.
Thank you so much, Senator Thompson. And again, I appreciate you coming out here. And I know you've got to go watch your daughter on homecoming court. That's so very exciting. And with that, if we could have Representative Mandy Ballinger come and talk to us for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and welcome to the 23rd. I'm really happy to have the GOP headquarters on the 23rd this year with this beautiful streets in the state. Anyway, for many of you who don't know, I'm trying really hard not to carry a lot of legislation this year. I currently serve on 7 committees, including transportation, appropriations, rules, and judicial non-civil, and I was recently appointed vice chair of juvenile justice. So, my committee work keeps me very busy. They're very busy committees. Medical marijuana is coming to judicial non-civil, which is one of my committees, so we'll be hearing that. But before I get into the bills that I am supporting or kind of efforting through the legislative process, I do want to talk about what I'm not for, and I think I stand collectively with Cherokee County delegation. We are not for Mary Margaret's bill, so we're not going to be coming. And actually, there's the Second Amendment bill that I hope to be able to sign on to that's going to be coming that will be actually an expansion of those rights. So with that, there's a couple of other pieces of legislation, just like Senator Thompson mentioned. I am helping, although I'm not carrying. It's actually Representative Raffensperger to the exclusion that if a child is born as a result of rape, that there is cause for termination. I also am considering a pro-life bill. There was a case down in Albany where a woman mail-ordered some abortion drugs from Canada. She was, I think, 24, 26 weeks pregnant. It was kind of late, but she mail-ordered the drugs and gave herself an abortion. And she was originally charged with malice murder because the baby subsequently died. It was born and it lived for about 30, 45 minutes and then it died, and she actually had it in a car. And so she was originally charged with malice murder, but then they couldn't prosecute because there's basically no condition. If you commit a felony and the baby dies, then you can. If somebody does something to a pregnant woman, then they can be arrested for a crime called feticide. But if the woman does something to herself to basically hurt that baby, regardless of how far along the baby is or whatever, then she is immune from prosecution. So that is something that I because I think, as somebody who is a very strong proponent of life at every stage of development, to me, I should be able to be prosecuted for that. So I am looking at an expansion of the feticide statute. But other than that, my committee work and not supporting Mary Margaret's bill, I have co-signed a couple of pieces of legislation, but right now I'm trying to just kind of get a handle on my new committees and trying to do that work. So that's what kind of I'm personally up to. So I appreciate it, and thank you, and welcome to the 23rd.
And Representative Wes Cantrell from the 22nd, which is going to be Forsyth, a little bit of Forsyth,
A little bit of Fulton.
a little bit of Fulton, but mostly East Cherokee.
80% Cherokee County. I do echo what I think someone said earlier about our delegation. When I meet with our delegation, it's a lot more fun than meeting with the Fulton delegation, if you can imagine. So anyway,
Second.
I'm trying to narrow down what I'd like to say to you this morning. I too am opposed to Mary Margaret's assault weapon ban. But here's where I differ, though. Although, in one respect, I'm glad the speaker is not going to allow that to get a hearing. In another respect, I wish he would, because I'd like for people to have to identify themselves and have to vote on this bill. And that's what been one of my frustrations in the one session that I've been in, is that we don't get to vote on a lot of things that I wish we did have to vote on, so that people would know where we stand. So I know some of the Democrats that sit around me yesterday were very upset about the introduction of this bill because they're pro-Second Amendment, but they get painted with a broad brush that they're not because of this bill that one of their colleagues put up. In the same way, I'd love for us to have to vote, even if it was just in committee, so the committee members would have to identify where they stand on a ridiculous bill like
It's
that.
House Bill 731, by the way.
731, yeah. Thank you. So what am I working on? I'm one of the top signers on the bill that Mandy and Bruce both mentioned about the rape bill. I think that's terminating parental rights for someone who commits rape is a no-brainer. I pre-filed a bill, House Bill 725, called the Child Abuse Records Protection Act. Last year at the end of session, I was approached by representatives of our children's advocacy centers. Many of you are aware of our CAC we have here in Cherokee County. It's one of the finest in the state, the Anna Crawford Children's Center. And there's kind of a little bit of a loophole in the law. Try to cut to the chase. When children allege that they've been abused, used to be they would go to take them to the principal's office, and some awkward policeman who had no training whatsoever would interview this child and try to figure out what was going on. Fortunately, about 20, 25 years ago, we began to see these CACs develop across our state. We have 46 of them. They serve 90% of our state now. And when a minor alleges abuse, they're taken to a child-friendly setting with experts who've been trained how to properly interview someone. The interviews are videotaped and are recorded. And so what has happened in recent years is that the ownership, the current law doesn't clarify who actually owns these recordings. And so our CACs are getting subpoenaed by all kind of attorneys for different kinds of cases that really have nothing to do with the harm that this child's been under. So a couple things that the bill will do is it will clearly clarify, who can have access to that record, how that works, how the judge issues protective orders to make sure those things aren't duplicated. I mean, as sick as it sounds, and it's very difficult to even talk about something like this, but you got 7- and 8-year-olds who are describing heinous acts perpetrated on them, and it's kind of an audio child pornography, if you will. So there's actually a black market for these type of materials. Then you fast forward 15, 20 years, and this person has now become a prominent member of society, could be used as blackmail against them or against the alleged, if the person's acquitted of the abuse allegation, they shouldn't have this hanging over their head. This information could be made public later down the road or used as blackmail against them as well. So it's just a way to clean that up. Did a lot of work, met with Superior Court judges, DFACs, CAC personnel, have been involved in a whole lot of work on this bill. Just found out, I pre-filed the bill, I dropped it on Wednesday, and now I'm getting some pushback from defense lawyers, which might kind of be a good thing. Actually, it shows we're kind of getting where it hurts. So anyway, I've got my first hearing on that in juvenile justice on this coming Thursday. So that's HB 725. Right after session last year, you guys know about the big battle we've had over the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And this is one case where we can actually, as House members, can really feel good about our Senate members because they actually passed the bill out of the Senate. Every chance I get to compliment the Senate, I want to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Representative.
That's the only chance I've had. I'm kidding. All right, so.
Which bills do you have coming over?
HB 725. All right, so you had. So after the session was over, the speaker, our leadership, put out this Pastors Protection Act, which is a good bill. I don't know the number of it. I'm sorry. But I called when I heard this was coming out. It sounded to me like it was kind of covered by the fact that we didn't pass RFRA. So I called the author of the bill, Kevin Tanner from Dawson County. He serves on the Forsyth County delegation with me. And I said, this is a good bill, but it needs to go further. It needs to have protections for churches who their venues. If someone wants to rent their facility for a wedding, they need to be protected from having to host a ceremony which might violate their conscience, their deeply held religious beliefs. It needs to protect people that own wedding venues if they want to They don't want to host an event that might violate their religious beliefs. And so Kevin dropped the Pastor Protection Act. He also dropped a separate bill that would protect private business owners from being forced to participate in a ceremony that would violate their strongly held religious beliefs. So I'm the second signer on that bill. Very proud of that. It's going to hit the fan big time because the chamber's not going to like this bill at all, and it's going to be interesting because it's different from RFRA. RFRA protects you from the government forcing you to violate your religious beliefs. This bill, I'm sorry I don't know the number, this bill protects individual small business owners from having to violate their business beliefs because they happen to have chosen an industry where they might be asked to do something that would violate that. So that's a very important bill. And I'll say one more thing about, I'm going to publicly be very opposed to the gambling legislation. Senator Beach and I have talked about this a lot, but probably not for reasons that you would expect from a guy who's a minister at a Baptist church. It's really not a moral issue for me so much as it is an economic one. And it's a smaller government issue for me as well. I just don't want our government all caught up in the gambling business. There's all kinds of research. I've written an op-ed. At the appropriate time, I'll disseminate that information. I'm happy to talk more about it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it this morning, but I don't think it's positive for our economy. I think it's a negative thing for our economy. And let me just say this. I've done some research this week, and I actually met with the head of the lottery this week. Lottery revenues are at an all-time high. You guys know we had the big Powerball this week and all that. So we're going to be over $1 billion in revenue from the lottery this year. The original legislation that was written to support the lottery recommended that 35 cents on the dollar be given to education from lottery proceeds. But they added that little line that gets the government, we just kind of mess up so many times. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but basically it said it was a recommendation. It wasn't a requirement that they get 35%. So now we're at 24.8% last year is what they paid back on the dollar to education. Had they hit the 35% mark, which was recommended, that would have been about $400 million of revenue to education, which is more than the $300 million that the rosy predictions of the enabling legislation for the gambling amendment. So we could more than make up, it's all about saving hope and for the children and education, but if we had stuck to our guns with the lottery, we would have that money available to us already. So I'm considering some ideas on those lines. Even if we just upped it to like 32% on the dollar, we would have $300 million more, which would have met what the gambling legislation is proposing. So I'll keep my eye on that. They also have not taken into consideration at all that if we bring legalized gambling to Georgia, it's going to cannibalize a lot of the revenue from the lottery as well. They're not even considering that. And so, there's only so much money for gambling out there. And we justify it by saying we're going to give the education, but we see where we are 25 years into hope. Where are we? Are we better off than we were 20 years ago, or are we kind of in the same spot? I would say we're in the same spot because the Board of Regents has just continued to raise tuition at a higher rate than we've been able to take in money